The transport ship's starbound Unity slowly moved toward Valdris Prime. Inside, over 300 young aliens sat in their seats, all heading to the same place, the Galactic Military Academy. They came from 60 different worlds, each species, bringing their own unique abilities. In seat 247B, a small human sat quietly reading a datapad. His name was Kong Taeho, and he was 19 years old. He had black hair, brown eyes, and stood about 5 feet 8 inches tall. Compared to most beings around him, he looked very ordinary. To his left sat a Gorvani warrior named Thralcrix. The creature was 8 feet tall, covered in thick gray skin, with 4 muscular arms. Each arm could lift 3 times what a human could manage. Thralcrix looked at Taeho and made a sound that might have been laughter. "Small Deathworlder," the Gorvani said in broken universal standard. "You sure you in right transport?" Maybe Children's Academy ship was next dock. Several nearby aliens turned to look. A Sylthan female named Miralith floated slightly above her seat, her translucent blue body glowing softly. She spoke without moving her lips, using her telepathic abilities. "The human does seem rather fragile." Her voice appeared in everyone's minds. "I heard their world is classified as a Class 12 death world. How did such a weak species survive on such a dangerous planet?" A Nexari cadet, whose mechanical body clicked and whirred, processed this information. "According to my data files, Earth has a mortality rate of 99.7% for all non-aided species. Only 17 beings from other worlds have ever survived more than 1 standard month on the surface." Taeho continued reading his datapad. Heard this conversation many times during the 6-week journey. He was used to other species thinking humans were weak. Most aliens saw humans as small, soft, and breakable. They couldn't understand how humans had survived on Earth. The ship's speakers crackled to life. "Attention, all cadets. We will arrive at Valdris Prime in 30 minutes. Please prepare for docking procedures." Through the viewing ports, the space station came into view. Valdris Prime was massive, a floating city in space that housed the Academy. It had been built in neutral space, where no single species controlled the territory. Here, young beings from across the galaxy learned to work together. After docking, the cadets moved through long corridors toward their dormitories. Taeho carried a simple bag containing his personal items. Other cadets carried massive containers, filled with environmental suits, breathing apparatus, and species-specific equipment. The human dormitory was small, with only 12 rooms. Humans were still new to the galactic community, having been discovered only 50 years ago. Most species had been spacefaring for thousands of years. Taeho's roommate was Park Soo-jin, a 20-year-old engineering student from Seoul. She had been at the Academy for 2 years already, working on advanced starship systems. When Taeho entered their shared room, she looked up from her workstation. "You must be my new roommate," she said in Korean, then switched to Universal Standard. "I'm Soo-jin. I heard you volunteered for the Advanced Combat Program." "That's right," Taeho replied, unpacking his few belongings. "Though I'm starting to think it was a mistake." Soo-jin raised an eyebrow. "Why?" "During the transport, I overheard some instructors talking. They said humans have never completed the Advanced Combat Program. The survival requirements are too difficult for our species." Soo-jin was quiet for a moment. Then she walked to her workstation and pulled up a holographic display. It showed statistics from the Academy's database. "Look at this," she said, pointing to the data. "In the past 10 years, the Advanced Combat Program has had a 67% completion rate for Gorvani warriors. Sylthan telepaths complete it 71% of the time. Nexari mechanical beings finish it 82% of the time. And humans?" Taeho asked, though he already knew the answer. 0%, Soo-jin confirmed. "But that's only because we've only sent 3 humans to try it. The sample size is too small to be meaningful." That evening, all new cadets gathered in the Great Assembly Hall. The room was enormous, designed to accommodate beings of all sizes. Floating platforms adjusted to different heights so everyone could see the stage. Academy Commandant Vexstar took the podium. He was a Cathori, standing 12 feet tall with 6 legs and skin that changed colors based on his emotions. Currently, his skin showed patterns of authority and welcome. Cadets, his voice boomed through the hall speakers. You represent the finest young beings in the galaxy. Here, you will learn not just to fight, but to protect. It's not just to lead, but to serve. The galaxy faces many dangers, and we need warriors who can work together despite their differences. He gestured to a large holographic display that showed various planets. Your first major trial will be survival training on Kelthros, a jungle. World classified as moderate danger level 7. You will be placed in teams of 4, with mixed species composition. Tejo listened as Commandant Vexstar explained the mission. Each team would be given basic survival equipment and dropped into different sections of Kelthros. They would need to survive for 1 standard week while completing various objectives. Team assignments will be posted tomorrow morning, the Commandant continued. Rest well tonight. Your real training begins at dawn. As cadets began filing out of the hall, Tejo noticed several groups already forming. The Gorvani cadets naturally grouped together, as did the Silthan and Nexari. No one approached him. He started walking toward the exit when he heard his name called. Cadet Kong. Tejo turned to see Instructor Kim Jae-wook walking toward him. Kim was a human who had graduated from the academy 15 years ago and now taught survival tactics. He was one of only 3 human instructors at the entire academy, sir. Tejo responded, standing at attention. I wanted to speak with you before tomorrow's team assignments, Kim said quietly. I know you requested the advanced combat program, but I have to ask, are you sure about this decision? Yes, sir, I am sure. Kim studied the younger human carefully. The other species here have natural advantages. Gorvani are incredibly strong. Silthan can read minds and sense danger before it happens. Nexari never get tired and can process information faster than organic brains. What advantage do humans have? Tejo thought about the question. It was something he had asked himself many times during the long journey to Valdres Prime. I don't know yet, sir, he answered honestly, but I'd like to find out. Kim nodded slowly. Fair enough. Get some rest, cadet. Tomorrow will be more challenging than you expect. As Tejo walked back to his dormitory, he could hear other species talking and laughing in their native languages. He felt very alone, but not afraid. He had grown up on Earth, where being alone often meant staying alive. Tomorrow he would find out what it meant to be human in a galaxy full of beings who thought they already knew the answer. The morning alarm rang through the academy at 0500 hours. Tejo was already awake, sitting quietly on his bed and looking out the viewport at the stars. Sujin rolled over and groaned. How can you be awake already? She mumbled in Korean. Habit, Tejo replied, standing up to get dressed. On Earth, you wake up early, or something else wakes up first and eats you. Sujin laughed, thinking he was joking. Tejo didn't correct her in the Great Assembly Hall. Cadets gathered around large holographic displays showing team assignments. Tejo found his name quickly. Next to it was written, Solo Assignment Sector 7. Solo Assignment. The voice behind him. Tejo turned to see Merilith, the Silthan telepath, floating nearby. Her blue skin was glowing brighter than usual, which meant she was curious. I have never seen a solo assignment before. Her voice appeared in his mind. All survival training is done in teams of 4. How did you get placed alone? I volunteered. Tejo said simply. Several nearby cadets heard this and turned to stare. Thrallcrix, the large Gorvani warrior, pushed through the crowd with his 4 massive arms. Volunteered? He laughed loudly. Small human thinks he can survive Jungle World. Alone? My team has 3 warriors and 1 tech specialist. We barely have enough firepower for safe mission. A Nexari cadet named Unit 7742 processed this information quickly. No, probability calculations indicate 97.3% mission failure rate for single organic being on Kelthros without team support. Instructor Kim Jae-wook stepped forward. Kung requested solo assignment after no team would accept a human member, he announced loudly. Academy regulations allow solo missions for cadets who cannot form standard teams. The hall went quiet. Everyone understood what this meant. No other species wanted to team up with the human. They saw him as a weakness that would get them all killed. However, Kim continued, Cadet Kong will receive the same equipment allowance. As a four-member team, Taeho raised his hand. Sir, I request standard single cadet equipment only. Kim blinked in surprise. Cadet, you understand that other teams will have 4 times the supplies, weapons, and survival gear. Yes, sir. I understand. In the Academy's monitoring center, Dr. Yoon Hwan watched the equipment distribution through security cameras. Head of xenobiology, he was fascinated by human behavior. Next to him, Commander Kim Jae-wook reviewed mission parameters. The human is taking minimal gear, Dr. Yoon observed. Standard survival kit, basic rations for 7 days, 1 emergency, beacon, and a simple knife. No energy weapons, no defensive shields, no communication enhancement. Commander Kim nodded. Either he's very confident or very foolish. Act! With humans, Dr. Yoon said quietly, those 2 things might be the same. The transport ship Deep Explorer carried all cadets to Kelthros. Through the viewports, they could see the jungle planet growing larger. It was covered in thick green forests with massive rivers cutting through the landscape like silver ribbons. Class 7 moderate danger, announced the ship's computer. Primary hazards include razor wing hawks, spine wolf packs, leviathan serpents, void bats, ridge bears, and 1 confirmed titan stalker in the northern sectors. Several cadets looked nervous. Even the confident Gorvani warriors checked their weapon systems twice. The ship's bay doors opened, and deployment pods launched toward different sectors of the planet. Each pod contained 1 team of 4 cadets, except for the pod heading to Sector 7, which carried only Tae-Ho. His pod hit the jungle canopy and deployed parachutes. Through the small window, he could see thick green leaves and twisted branches rushing past. The pod landed with a soft thud in a small clearing. Taeho stepped out and immediately felt the humid air against his skin. The jungle was loud-filled, with strange bird calls, insect buzzing, and the distant roar of unknown creatures. Most beings would find this overwhelming. Taeho closed his eyes and listened carefully. After 30 seconds, he opened them again. Now he could separate the sounds. Bird calls from the east meant no predators nearby. Insect buzzing was normal forest activity. The distant roar came from the south and was moving away. He shouldered his pack and began walking north, toward his first objective point. Meanwhile, in Sector 3, Team Alpha 7 was already in trouble. The team consisted of 2 Gorvani warriors, 1 Silthan telepath, and 1 Nexari tech specialist. They had been on the ground for only 2 hours when they encountered their first major threat. Razorwing Hawks incoming, shouted Gorvani leader. Break door. Energy shields up. 3 large bird-like creatures dove from the treetops. Their wings had razor-sharp edges that could cut through metal, and their talons dripped with acid that could dissolve most materials in seconds. The team formed. A defensive circle, energy weapons charging. The Silthan telepath tried to confuse the birds with mental attacks, but their animal minds were too simple to effect. The Nexari calculated attack patterns while the Gorvani warriors fired energy blasts. After 10 minutes of fighting, they finally drove off the Hawks. But they had used 30% of their energy reserves and damaged to pieces of equipment. This is only the first day, said the Nexari unit. If all encounters require this level of resource expenditure, we will not complete the mission. In Sector 7, Taeho was having a very different experience. He had been walking for 4 hours and had seen several dangerous creatures, but none had attacked him. A ridge bear, standing 8 feet tall with claws like swords, had watched him pass from behind a large tree. Instead of charging, it had sniffed the air carefully, then turned and walked away. A pack of spine wolves had followed him for 2 hours, staying just out of sight. Their leader had finally shown itself, blocking the path ahead. The wolf was the size of a small horse, with bone spikes along its back that could shoot out like arrows. Taeho stopped walking. He looked directly at the wolf and stood very still. He did not reach for his knife or his emergency beacon. He did not try to look bigger or more threatening. He simply stood there, calm and relaxed. The wolf tilted its head, confused. This small creature showed no fear, but also no aggression. It smelled wrong too, not like prey, but not like predator either. It smelled like something that belonged in dangerous places. After staring at each other for 60 seconds, the wolf stepped aside. Tejo nodded respectfully and continued walking. The pack followed for another hour, then disappeared back into the jungle. In the Academy Monitoring Center, Dr. Yoon replayed the wolf encounter 3 times. Fascinating, he said to Commander Kim. The spine wolf pack showed classic territorial behavior with other teams, immediate aggression, pack hunting tactics. But with the human, they treated him differently, Commander Kim finished. Like he was another predator they needed to respect, not prey they could hunt. But humans aren't apex predators, Dr. Yoon said, confused. They're omnivores with no natural weapons, average speed, and relatively weak physical strength. Commander Kim was quiet for a moment. Maybe being an apex predator isn't about being the strongest, he said finally. Maybe it's about something else entirely. As the first day ended, Tejo made camp in a small clearing near a freshwater stream. He built a simple fire using dry wood and fallen leaves. He ate a basic meal and checked his equipment. Everything was working perfectly, and he had used no energy reserves at all. Around him, the jungle continued its nightly symphony of sounds. But now those sounds seemed less threatening and more welcoming. Something was different about this human, and every creature in the forest could sense it. Day 3 on Kelthros began with unusual quiet. In the Academy Monitoring Center, Dr. Yoon Hwan noticed something strange on the sensor readings. The jungle's normal activity patterns had changed during the night. Commander Kim, he called too. His colleague? Look at these bio readings from Sector 7. Commander Kim Jae-wook studied the displays. The animal movement patterns are different. Usually we see random distribution across all sectors. But now, paused, checking the data twice. Now most large predators are moving away from Sector 7, away from where the human is located. Dr. Yoon confirmed in the Academy's Communication Center, Lee Dae-hai was monitoring team check-ins. As head of emergency response, she tracked each cadet's location and status every 6 hours. Team Alpha 7 in Sector 3 reported heavy casualties to equipment, 3 energy weapons damaged, medical supplies at 60%, request permission to activate. Emergency extraction. Team Beta 2 in Sector 5 reported void bat attack during night rotation. 1 cadet injured. Aid. Using backup shelter after primary camp destroyed. Team Gamma 4 in Sector 9 reported Ridge Bear destroyed food supplies. Attempting to reach secondary supply cache. AI need early extraction. Then came the report from Sector 7. Cadet Kang reporting. All objectives completed ahead of schedule. No equipment damage. No injuries. Continuing to advanced objective points. Lee Dae-hai stared at her communication panel. She called over Choi Minho, her senior assistant. Minho, look at this. The human has completed 3 days of objectives without any problems. No equipment damage, no medical issues, no requests for additional supplies. Choi Minho checked the records. That's impossible. Even our best Nexari teams usually suffer some equipment failure by day 3. The jungle environment is specifically designed to test resource management skills. And he's asking to continue to advanced objective points, Lee Dae-hai added. Those are optional challenges that most teams never attempt. Meanwhile, in Sector 7, Tejo was studying something that made his blood run cold. He stood in front of a massive tree, looking up at claw marks that stretched from ground level to 20 feet up the trunk. Each claw mark was as wide as his hand and cut deep into the wood. These were not ridge bear claws. They were much too large and too deep, according to his academy training materials. Only one creature on Kelthros could make marks like this, the Titan Stalker. Tejo had read the files on this creature during his transport journey to the academy. 15 feet tall, weighing over 2 tons, with intelligence equal to most sentient species. It was the apex predator of Kelthros, the creature that every other animal feared. The academy records showed only one confirmed sighting. 12 years ago, a research team of 12 scientists had encountered it. None survived. Tejo examined the claw marks more carefully. The cuts in the wood were recent, no more than 2 days old. The stalker had been here while he was walking. Through this area, he looked around the clearing and found more signs. Massive footprints in soft ground, broken branches 12 feet above the forest floor, and something else, scent markers. Taeho had grown up in the mountains of Korea, where his grandfather taught him to track wild animals. He understood territorial marking behavior. The stalker was claiming this area as its hunting ground instead of leaving immediately. Taeho did something that would have seemed insane to any other cadet. He took out his simple knife and walked to a tree 30 meters away from the stalker's marks. Carefully, he made small cuts in the bark, not deep, not threatening, but clearly visible. Then he gathered stones and built a small cairn next to the tree. In human culture, cairns marked safe passage through dangerous territory. He was not challenging the stalker's claim. He was asking permission to pass through safely. In the monitoring center, Dr. Yoon watched this behavior with growing amazement. "What is he doing?" Commander Kim asked. "I think," Dr. Yoon said slowly, "he's communicating." That evening, Taeho made camp in the same clearing where he found the claw marks. Other cadets would have run immediately to safer ground, but Taeho understood something about apex predators that no other species seemed to grasp. Running from them made you prey. He built his fire as usual, ate his simple meal, and arranged his sleeping area. Then he sat quietly, listening to the jungle sounds. Around midnight, the normal sounds stopped completely. The Titan stalker was coming. In the Academy Monitoring Center, emergency alerts began flashing. The biosensors detected the massive creature. Moving toward Taeho's location. "Get extraction team ready," Lita Hai ordered immediately. "Full emergency response." "Wait," said Dr. Yoon, watching the sensor readings carefully. "Look at the approach pattern." The stalker was moving slowly, deliberately. Not rushing like a predator attacking prey. It was being careful, almost cautious. Why would the apex predator of the planet be cautious? Commander Kim wondered aloud. Taeho heard it long before he saw it. Footsteps that made the ground shake slightly. The sound of massive claws scraping against trees. Heavy breathing that sounded like distant thunder. Then it emerged from the jungle into the firelight. The Titan stalker was even larger than the Academy files described. Its body was covered in thick scales that reflected the firelight like black metal. Its claws were longer than Taeho's entire arm. Its head was intelligent and alert, with eyes that glowed yellow in the darkness. Any normal creature would have been frozen with terror. The Academy's extraction teams were preparing for emergency deployment. In the monitoring center, several observers held their breath. Taeho looked up at the stalker and nodded respectfully, the way his grandfather had taught him to acknowledge the dangerous bears in Korea's mountains. The stalker stopped 10 feet away from the fire. It studied the small human with obvious intelligence. This was not normal prey behavior. Prey animals ran, hid, or attacked in panic. This creature was calm, respectful, but not submissive. More importantly, it smelled wrong. It did not smell like the other soft, weak creatures that had come to this world recently. It smelled like something that had lived with danger for a very long time. The stalker's evolutionary instincts recognized something it had never encountered before, a creature from a world so dangerous that even it, the apex predator of Kelthros, represented only a moderate threat. Slowly, carefully, the stalker lowered itself to the ground, not lying down in submission, but settling into a resting position that showed respect without showing weakness. It remained at the edge of the firelight, close enough to attack if threatened, far enough to show it was not planning to attack. In the Academy Monitoring Center, no one spoke for 10 minutes. "This is impossible," Commander Kim finally whispered. "Apex predators don't show respect to prey species." Dr. Yoon was running calculations on his datapad. "Unless," he said slowly, "it doesn't see him as prey. And what does it see him as?" Lita Hai asked. Dr. Yoon looked at the image of the small human sitting calmly across from the most dangerous creature on the planet. "An equal," he said. Taeho and the Titan stalker spent the night in each other's company. The human slept in short periods, always aware of the massive creature nearby. The stalker remained alert but relaxed, occasionally lifting its head to scan the surrounding jungle. When dawn came, the stalker stood slowly. It looked at Tejo one more time, then turned and disappeared back into the jungle. But not before leaving its own message. Next to Tejo's small cairn of stones, the stalker had placed a single claw that had naturally fallen from its foot. In the complex social language of apex predators, it was a sign of mutual respect. Tejo packed his gear and continued his mission. Behind him, he left the small cairn and the stalker's claw exactly where they were. Word of the encounter spread through the jungle's ecosystem faster than any electronic communication. Every predator, from the smallest venom darts to the mighty ridge bears, received the message through scent trails, territorial markings, and the complex communication network that connected all dangerous creatures. The small bipedal being walked. With the Titan Stalker's approval, from that moment forward, Tejo's journey through Kelthros changed completely. He was no longer just another creature trying to survive in a hostile environment. He had become something that every apex predator understood and respected, a fellow survivor from a world where survival meant understanding death itself. The morning after the Titan Stalker encounter, something strange happened across all sectors of Kelthros. In the Academy Monitoring Center, Dr. Yoon Hwan watched the bioreadings with growing confusion. The predator activity patterns have completely changed, he told Commander Kim Jae-wook. Look at this data. Commander Kim studied the displays. In Sectors 1 through 6, predator attacks on cadet teams have increased by 300%. But in Sector 7, zero attacks, Dr. Yoon finished.
For the
past 18 hours, not a single aggressive encounter with Cadet Kong. Meanwhile, Lee Dahai was receiving increasingly desperate reports from the other team's team. Alpha 7 reported. Emergency extraction requested. 3 cadets injured in Razorwing Hawk attack. Medical supplies exhausted. Teammate 2 reported. Lost all communication equipment to acid damage. Using emergency beacon for this transmission only. Team Gamma 4 reported. Ridge Bear destroyed our shelter, spending 4th night without proper protection. But from Sector 7 came a different kind of report. Cadet Kong, completing advanced objectives 2 days ahead of schedule. All equipment functional. Request permission to attempt expert-level challenges. In the Academy's Xenobiology department, Professor Nam Yoon Jae was teaching her daily class when an urgent message arrived. The professor was a small, elderly woman who had studied alien behavior for 40 years. Students, she announced to her mixed species class, we are witnessing something that has never been recorded in galactic history. She activated the large holographic display showing footage from Tejo's mission. The video showed him walking calmly through areas where other teams had suffered major attacks. A human cadet is completing survival objectives that typically require full teams with advanced equipment. He is doing this alone with minimal gear and without any aggressive encounters with local predators. A Gorvani student raised one of his 4 hands. Professor Nam, this is impossible. Humans are weak prey species. How can predators ignore him? Professor Nam smiled. That is exactly the wrong question. Student Brackfell. The correct question is, what if humans are not prey species at all? The class murmured in confusion. Silthan student spoke without moving her lips. But humans have no natural weapons, no enhanced senses, no special physical abilities. How can they be predators? Let me tell you about Earth, Professor Nam said, changing the display to show various Earth creatures. On the human homeworld, a creature called a mosquito kills more large animals than any apex predator. Organism called bacteria can destroy creatures 1,000,000 times larger. Plants create poisons that kill massive beasts. She paused, letting this information sink in. On Earth, survival is not about being the biggest or strongest. It is about understanding how everything else wants to kill you and learning to live anyway. Back on Kelthros, Daho was facing his most challenging test yet, crossing the Crimson River. The river was 50 meters wide, with fast-moving red water that contained high levels of iron oxide. More importantly, it was home to Leviathan, serpents. These creatures were 30 feet long, with heads the size of small vehicles. They could sense vibrations in the water from hundreds of meters away. According to Academy records, no cadet had ever successfully crossed the Crimson River without losing at least one team member. Tejo stood on the riverbank for 2 hours, not moving, just watching. The other cadets would have looked for weapons or technology to fight the serpents. Instead, Tejo was learning their behavior patterns. He noticed that the serpents surfaced to breathe every 14 minutes. They hunted in the deeper sections where the current was strongest. They avoided the shallow areas near the banks during the hottest part of the day. Most importantly, he observed that they followed specific patrol routes through the water, like guards walking set paths. In the monitoring center, Captain Brickstall of the Nexari was running calculations. His mechanical brain processed thousands of variables per second. "I've analyzed 17 different crossing strategies," he announced. To the other observers, all scenarios result in 73% to 94% probability of serpent attack. The human should request extraction rather than attempt this crossing. Dr. Yoon was watching Tejo's behavior carefully. "He's not looking for a way to fight them," he observed. "He's looking for a way to avoid them entirely." At exactly 13:47 hours, when the sun was hottest and the serpents were resting in deeper water, Tejo began his crossing. He did not wade straight across. Instead, he moved in a zigzag pattern. Staying in the shallow areas where the serpents never hunted, he moved slowly, carefully, making minimal disturbance in the water. When he had to cross deeper sections, he waited for gaps in the serpents' patrol patterns. He moved when they were looking the other way, stopped when they turned toward him. It took him 3 hours to cross 50 meters of river. Any other cadet would have tried to rush across in 10 minutes and been killed. Tejo understood that speed was less important than timing. The serpents never even knew he was there. "Possible," Captain Brickstall said, rechecking his calculations. "The crossing success rate for his method should be 12% at maximum." "Unless," Dr. Yoon said quietly, "his method is something we have never seen before." That evening, Tejo faced another challenge: the Screaming Caverns. These underground tunnels were home to thousands of void bats, creatures that used echolocation to hunt. Their sonic attacks could shatter bones and burst eardrums. Most teams avoided the caverns entirely, taking the longer route around the mountain, but the caverns contained the location of Tejo's final objective. Instead of bringing sonic dampeners or protective gear, Tejo sat outside the cavern entrance and listened. For 4 hours, he studied the patterns of the bats' echolocation. Calls: void bats use different sound frequencies for different purposes. High-pitched calls for navigation. Low-pitched calls for communication with other bats. Tejo realized that if he could move in rhythm with their natural communication patterns, they might not recognize him as prey. He entered the cavern during a period when the bats were using low-pitched communication calls. He walked slowly, stopping and starting in rhythm with their sounds. When they switched to hunting calls, he froze completely until they returned to communication mode. The bats flew around him, sometimes passing within inches of his face, but they never attacked. It's their echolocation senses. He was moving like another bat, part of their environment rather than prey to be hunted. In 6 hours, he navigated through 12 kilometers of cavern tunnels without a single aggressive encounter. Professor Nam Yoon-jae received the footage of this achievement during her evening research period. She watched it 3 times, then called Dr. Yoon in the monitoring center. "Doctor," she said, "I need you to send me all video footage of human behavior on Earth. Historical records, nature documentaries, anything you can find." "Why?" Dr. Yoon asked. "Because I think we have completely misunderstood what humans are," she replied. "We see them as weak because they have no claws, no fangs, no natural armor. What if those things are not necessary on their world?" She paused, organizing her thoughts. What if humans survived on Earth, not by being apex predators, but by being something much more dangerous: apex adapters, creatures that can learn the language of any environment and speak it fluently enough to belong there? As the sun set on day 5 of the mission, Tejo made camp near his final objective point. Around him, the jungle continued its nightly symphony of dangerous sounds. But now those sounds seemed almost welcoming. Birds called warnings about his presence, but not alarm calls. Predators marked their territory near his camp, but did not challenge his right to be there. The entire ecosystem had accepted him as part of the natural order. In the Academy Monitoring Center, the night shift observers watched in amazement as creatures that should have been hunting the human instead seemed to be protecting the area around his camp. "It's like he's become part of the jungle," Li Dahai whispered. "No," Dr. Yoon corrected. "Studying the bio readings, it's like the jungle has become part of him." Tomorrow was the final day of the mission. Other teams were barely surviving with full equipment and team support. Meanwhile, single human with basic gear had not only completed all objectives, but had somehow convinced an entire ecosystem to treat him as a respected neighbor. The galaxy was about to learn something. Knew about the species from the small blue? The world that everyone called the Deathworld. They were about to learn what it truly meant to be human. Day 6 of the mission began with alarms screaming through the Academy Monitoring Center. Emergency lights flashed red as urgent data flooded the displays. "Massive stellar storm approaching Kelthro's system," announced the computer. "All orbital. Platforms must evacuate in 4 hours. Surface extraction impossible for next 18 hours." Colonel Osunmin, head of emergency response, studied the storm data with growing alarm. "This is a Class 9 stellar event. The electromagnetic interference will destroy all communication systems and shut down emergency beacons." Commander Kim Jae-wook looked at the cadet locations on the planet below. "The teams aren't ready for extraction. Most of them are barely surviving with full equipment support." Dr. Yoon Hwan checked the individual team status reports. Team Alpha 7 has 2 injured cadets and no working shelter. Team Batu lost their food supplies to acid damage. Team Gamma 4 has been requesting early extraction for 2 days. "And the human?" Colonel O asked. Dr. Yoon switched to Taeho's tracking signal. "Cadet Kong completed his final objective 3 hours ago. He's currently at the extraction point, but ... But what? According to his last communication, he heard the emergency alerts from the other teams. He's requesting permission to provide assistance." Colonel O stared at the display. "One cadet wants to help 3 full teams that have superior equipment in numbers." "Yes, sir." On the planet's surface, the stellar storm was already beginning to affect the weather. Dark clouds gathered rapidly, and the wind began to howl through the jungle. Rain started falling, but this was not normal rain. It was acidic, capable of burning through most materials. Team Alpha 7 huddled in their damaged shelter as water began leaking through holes melted by the acid rain. Thrallcrix, the large Gorvani warrior, tried to patch the holes with emergency sealant, but the acidic water dissolved it within minutes. "Emergency beacon not working," announced Unit 7742, the Nexari cadet. "Electromagnetic interference has blocked all communications." Marilith, the Sylthan telepath, was using her mental abilities to try to contact the Academy. "I cannot reach the orbital platform," she reported. "The stellar storm is creating too much psychic interference. We will not survive the night without proper shelter," Thrallcrick said grimly. His forearms were already showing chemical burns from the acid rain, 20 kilometers away. Team Beitu was in even worse condition. Their shelter had collapsed completely, and they were hiding under a rock overhang that provided minimal protection. Their leader, a Cathlari named Vexdana, was trying to treat acid burns on 2 team members. "Food supplies completely destroyed," reported their Nexari engineer. "Emergency rations dissolved when container seal failed." Team Gamma 4 was trapped by rising floodwaters. The acid rain was causing the river levels to rise rapidly, and their campsite was now on a small island that would be underwater within hours. "Cannot reach higher ground," their team leader reported through a failing communication device. Water levels rising too fast, acid content making swimming impossible. In the Academy Monitoring Center, the situation was desperate. Colonel O was preparing to risk an emergency extraction despite the stellar storm, even though it would likely destroy the rescue ships. "Sir," Dr. Yoon called from his monitoring station, "I'm receiving a transmission from Sector 7, from the human." "How is that possible? All communications should be blocked." Dr. Yoon checked his equipment twice. He's using a very low-frequency emergency signal, barely getting through the interference. The message was simple: Cadet Kong 2 Academy Control. Requesting coordinates of all teams in distress. Will provide assistance until extraction possible. Colonel O looked at the storm data again. Even if we give him the coordinates, how can one cadet help 3 teams that are better equipped than he is? Sir, Dr. Yoon said quietly, I suggest we give him the coordinates. What do we have to lose? Taeho received the team coordinates through his emergency communicator. He studied the locations on his datapad. Team Alpha 7 was 15 kilometers northeast. Team Bay 2 was 12 kilometers southwest. Team Gamma 4 was 8 kilometers due south. Normal procedure would be to choose the closest team and hope to save one group. But Taeho was not thinking about normal procedures. He was thinking about something his grandfather had taught him during mountain rescue training in Korea. In dangerous situations, speed is less important than efficiency. Save energy by working with the environment, not against it. Taeho began moving through the storm-ravaged jungle with purpose. But now his behavior was different from the past 5 days. The human who had walked peacefully among apex predators was gone. In his place was something that made those same predators retreat in instinctive fear. He moved through the acid rain without seeking shelter, using broad leaves as temporary protection and discarding them when they dissolved. He navigated the flooding rivers by reading the current patterns and using fallen trees as bridges. He moved through the storm like he had been born in it. Team Gamma 4 was closest to drowning, so he reached them first. Their small island was now only 10 meters across, with acid water rising rapidly around them. Human, called their leader, a Gorvani named Braxer. How did you reach us? The water is too dangerous to cross. Taeho had already found a solution. Upstream, a large tree had fallen across the river, but it was underwater. He dove beneath the acidic surface, holding his breath, and secured a rope to the submerged tree. Then he swam back to the team's island. Follow the rope, he told them. Stay underwater as much as possible. The acid is weaker below the surface, but the rope will dissolve in the acid. Protested their Nexari engineer. Taeho held up the rope. It was not standard academy equipment. It was woven plant fiber he had made from jungle vines. This rope is from local plants. They evolved to resist the acid rain. He guided all 4 team members across the flooded river to safety. Then immediately headed toward Team Beta-2. The journey took him through areas where the storm had awakened every dangerous creature on the planet. Ridge bears, normally solitary, were moving in confused groups. Spine wolf packs were hunting frantically for shelter. Even the Titan stalker was seeking protection from the acid rain. But when these creatures encountered Taeho, he did something unprecedented. Instead of attacking or fleeing, they moved aside and let him pass. Some even seemed to follow him briefly, as if his confidence in the storm gave them hope. Team Bateau was semi-conscious from chemical burns when Taeho found them. Their shelter was destroyed and they had no protection from the acid rain. Working quickly, Taeho gathered specific types of leaves and tree bark that he had observed during his 5 days in the jungle. These plants had natural resistance to acid. He built a temporary shelter using techniques his grandfather had taught him for emergency survival. Then he treated their acid burns using from local trees that had healing properties. Plants that had evolved on this planet had developed natural remedies for the environmental dangers. How do you know these plants are safe? Asked their injured leader, Vextana. Because I watched what the local animals use when they get injured. Taeho replied simply. With Team Bait 2 stabilized, he made the longest journey to Team Alpha 7. By now, the storm was at its worst. Lightning struck constantly. The acid rain was so heavy it was hard to see, and the temperature was dropping rapidly. Team Alpha 7 was nearly dead when he arrived. Their shelter had completely dissolved, and they were lying exposed to the acid rain. Thrallcrix, the massive Gorvani warrior, was unconscious. The others were barely breathing. Taeho worked through the night. He built them a proper shelter using advanced techniques that combined human engineering with local materials. He treated their injuries using plant medicines. found them safe water and food that the jungle provided to those who knew how to. Ask by dawn. When the stellar storm finally passed and Academy rescue ships could land, all 3 teams were alive and stable in the Academy Medical Center. Dr. Lee Min-jae examined the rescued cadets with amazement. The treatment they received was more effective than our advanced medical equipment. How did the human know which plants to use? Professor Nam Yoon-jae had spent the night reviewing all available data about human evolution. She now understood what made humans special. Humans did not survive on Earth by being the strongest or fastest. She explained to the assembled Academy staff. They survived by being the most adaptable. They can learn the rules of any environment and follow them perfectly. Academy Director General An Ji-hoo addressed the entire Academy Assembly the next day. All cadets and instructors gathered to hear about the unprecedented rescue mission. You have wondered why humans were accepted into the galactic community. Despite coming from a death world, he said, looking at the various alien species in the audience. Some of you thought we made a mistake. He gestured to the display showing footage of Taeho's mission. Now you understand. Humans did not conquer their world through violence or destruction. They learned to live with it through understanding and adaptation. This makes them the most valuable allies we could ask for, because they know the difference between surviving and destroying. Thrallcrix, the Gorvani warrior who had mocked Taeho on the first day, approached the human cadet after the assembly. Small human, he said, but his tone was completely different now. I owe you my life. My species has words for this debt that cannot be repaid. No debt, Taeho replied simply. We are all cadets here. We help each other. In the weeks that followed, everything changed at the Academy. New cadets arriving from across the galaxy looked at the human cadets with respect rather than suspicion. The footage of Taeho's mission became required viewing for all xenobiology courses. More importantly, humans like Yoon Suri and Jang Woo-jin began arriving to join the Academy. They were no longer seen as weak links in cadet teams. Instead, they were highly sought after for their unique abilities to adapt and survive. Taeho, now known throughout the Academy as the Walker, began teaching mixed-species survival courses. He taught alien cadets not how to fight hostile environments, but how to understand them well enough to live in harmony with them. The galaxy had learned something important about the small species from the Blue Death World. Humans were not dangerous because they were violent or aggressive. They were dangerous because they could survive anywhere, adapt to anything, and turn any environment into their home. And perhaps most importantly, they chose to use that ability to help others rather than to conquer them. The Death World had not created monsters. It had created the ultimate survivors who knew that true strength lay not in dominance but in understanding.